Hamas just attacked the site where U.S. troops are building a pier to bring humanitarian aid into Gaza. We're going to get into the details and also the implications of that attack. Also, an 18-year-old girl was just seriously wounded after a stabbing attack in Israel earlier this morning. Also, we're going to get into a miraculous escape from another terrorist attack that happened in Jerusalem earlier this week. I'm Ben, and this is the Israel Guys. Welcome back to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you should have a direct connection to the land and people of Israel. Thank you so much for joining us once again here on YouTube, also on podcast. I'm going to remind you again, our summit is coming up at the end of May. IsraelGuys.com. The IsraelGuys.com/summit is where you can find all the details on how you can physically stand with the nation and people of Israel right now more than any other time before. They really need it. In the news, in Gaza, U.S. troops have started construction on a maritime pier off the coast of Gaza. This was in the headlines back in March. President Biden announced that they would start construction back in March. Now they're doing so from U.S. ships. This pier would be just southwest of Gaza City. And there's a debate as to whether it's really needed or not. You know, Israel's facilitating a lot of supplies coming into Gaza. It seems like Gaza is very well supplied with food as of this point. So is a pier really necessary? Probably not. Will it actually hinder supplies coming in? Possibly so. Could it be useful? Maybe. It's for experts to determine in and outside of Israel. I do want to say kudos to the Biden administration for actually doing something instead of just sitting around virtue signaling to the Israeli government as to how they need to be providing aid for the people of Gaza. The U.S. administration seems like they're actively trying to do something, whether it's actually useful or not. That's to be debated. The pier would work. According to U.S. officials, pallets of aid would be inspected and loaded into commercial ships in Cyprus, which would sail the 200 miles from there to Israel, or to Gaza. The pallets would be transferred into trucks, driven into smaller army vessels, and then taken several miles to the causeway, which will be roughly 1,800 feet long and anchored to the shoreline by the Israeli military. Trucks will then go down the causeway to a secure drop-off area where pallets will be distributed to aid agencies. That mission could last several months, a U.S. military official told the Associated Press. So that was information given to the Associated Press. There's always been a problem, though, with this whole idea. The problem is the pier is supposed to be built by the U.S. military. Gaza is still in an active state of war. So the problem is when you put U.S. military on the ground, boots on the ground, in a place that's in an active state of war, and the U.S. military doesn't want to get in a shooting war with Hamas, what's going to happen? Especially because Hamas is a terrorist organization, meaning they're not going to really just sit around and say like, oh, you're bringing us aid, so we're going to... whatever, that's, it's not really the way it works with terrorist organizations. And so the fear has been, if we put American troops on the ground, will they get fired at? And if they get fired at, how will the U.S. government handle that kind of situation? Well, we wonder no longer, because it actually happened this week. Kind of. American troops were not fired on, but UN officials were touring the site with Israeli officials in preparation for the pier to be built. U.S. has brought ships in, and they're making a lot of preparations for building this pier. As they were touring the site, Hamas opened fire with mortars on UN officials touring a site to bring humanitarian aid into Gaza. The level of stupidity here is just off the charts. The Israeli military obviously evacuated the UN officials as quickly as possible, and no one was hurt and no one was killed, but it sent a clear message from Hamas. And if that message wasn't clear enough, they also sent a verbal message. They didn't officially take responsibility for the attack. But Hamas told an official at the AP on Wednesday that the terror group will resist any foreign military presence involved with the port project. So they're not taking responsibility, but they're taking responsibility. This just brings up a big problem. It's like, if the U.S. is not going to get involved putting troops on the ground, great. They're probably really not needed in the fight in Gaza. The Israeli military's got this one in particular. It's a relatively small area inside of Gaza. But if they are going to put troops on the ground, then it seems like the American military would need some way to protect those troops, or they're just sitting ducks for Hamas. And as of right now, the Biden administration came out and said they're putting a halt kind of on the thing that they're not going to allow, U.S. troops on the ground until they figure something out. So, I mean, did they not expect this? Did they not expect Hamas to open fire on U.S. troops? I mean, they haven't yet, but they basically did through the UN, and they made it clear that they probably said they would resist any foreign military presence involved with the port. So that assumes that they would open fire on American troops if given the opportunity. I don't know what the Biden administration expected here exactly and what their plan is going forward, but it's a very, very interesting situation for the American government. I don't know if they'll just rely on Israel to provide security. I don't know how that would work exactly, but it is a situation that's happening, and it's rather fascinating. Something that's not so fascinating that's happened in the news earlier this morning is an 18-year-old girl was stabbed in Ramle in central Israel. Some reports are saying she was 19, but relatively young. Not a lot of details are known yet as to the attack, but the police are saying that it was a terrorist attack, and that the terrorist was mentally unstable. Whatever that means. Apparently, he jumped on her and stabbed her several times in the back, and he was chased by some of her friends and relatives a couple of kilometers down the street. He tried to stab another woman, and one of her friends or relatives, the reports didn't specify who, shot and killed him. Thank God. Thank God he was not able to stab the other woman, according to the reports that I'm seeing right now. The girl was rushed to the hospital and continues to be in serious condition. So need to continue to pray for her. In a minute, we're going to get into another attempted terrorist attack that happened earlier this week and a miraculous escape that followed. But first, are you frustrated that you can't read the Bible in its original Hebrew? Have you ever wondered what you're missing by reading the Bible in translation? Well, here's your chance to tap into the deeper meaning of the Bible through Hebrew. Introducing 75 Hebrew words you need to understand the Bible from Israel 365. This beautifully crafted, coffee table-sized book unravels the hidden meanings of 75 core Hebrew words that are central to the Bible's teachings. Each word is accompanied by an in-depth essay exploring its significance, connections to related Hebrew words, and the secrets only accessible through the original language. This book is a valuable resource for Bible study, a captivating conversation starter, and an ideal gift for loved ones. Immerse yourself in the world of 75 Hebrew words and experience a transformative journey that deepens your connection to God. Don't miss out. Get your copy today and enrich your spiritual journey with the essence of the Hebrew Bible. The link is down in the description below. A couple of days ago, a small group of ultra-Orthodox Jews were walking down the street in Jerusalem when this happened. I'm blurring the video because it's graphic, but a car with two Palestinians in it rams them down, plows right through the group, right through the middle of them, and you can just see a couple of them flip right over the hood of the car here. They speed around the corner, crash into other parked cars, jump out with a machine gun to mow down anyone that survives. Some of these Jewish guys should have been killed when the car hit them. They're traveling at very fast speed, plows right into the middle of them, but they weren't. They should have been murdered when this guy jumps out of the car with a submachine gun, and they're still standing right there. He could have run over and shot them dead. Some or all of them. If not seriously wounding them, could have killed them. But when he jumps out of his car, his gun jams. Not only was no one seriously injured when the car plowed into them, but when he jumps out to murder whoever is left alive, his gun jams and he's not able to get it functioning. You can see here for like a couple of seconds, he's trying to get it functioning, and he can't get it. They run away, and he cannot get his gun to function. And he finally throws it down and runs. And these two guys were later caught very quickly afterwards in a manhunt and hauled off in handcuffs, as you can see in this video right here. One of the terrorists was 17 years old. This is a narrative that I see over and over here in the States. Politicians and activists who are trying to get kids out of Israeli prisons, as if kids don't ever belong in prison. Many of those kids in Israeli prisons are these kind of situations right here, where you have somebody who's below the age of 18, technically a child, who tries to murder people. I'm sorry, but like when you have a child or a teenager, you know, an older teenager who tries to murder somebody, there has to be consequences for that. No matter what their age is, there has to be consequences for it. The Israeli court system is very conscientious that these are children and they're treated differently than adults. But in many cases, it does still end up with prison time, as these two men, I'm going to call them, these two men will get prison time, and hopefully, God willing, a whole lot of it. Thank God for his protection. In this case, our prayers are with the girl that was stabbed earlier this morning, and our prayers continue to be with the state of Israel in these very uncertain times. Don't forget to check out Israel 365 75 Hebrew words. The link is down in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe and get the conversation going down below. As always, tune out the fake news and tune into what is actually happening here in the land of Israel. We'll be back nearly every day, Monday through Friday, with your direct connection to the land and people of Israel.